If you're wondering what the Maths Pathway program actually looks and functions like, then join us today for this replay interview that I have with Liam from Maths Pathway. He's going to take us behind the scenes and show us all the ins and outs and how the Maths Pathway program functions so that you can assess whether you feel it is the right program for you and your children. I can say good afternoon. It is afternoon, isn't it? It's only 12 o'clock here in Queensland, so elsewhere you might already be at 1, but good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. If you're new to any of these live presentations, hello, I'm Kylie from Homeschool Resource Finder. Today I'm joined by Liam from Maths Pathway. Hi,
Hello,
Liam.
everyone.
Thanks again for joining us. And we're going to be walking through a bit of a background behind Maths Pathway, doing a demonstration, and then answering any questions, anything that you can think of that you might have about the program. As you can all see, he's got some slides to take us through first. So I will hand the floor over to you. Thanks, Liam.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kylie, and good day to everyone. I'll begin by just acknowledging the traditional custodians on all the lands on which we're meeting today and pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. And what I was intending we go through today is first touching on how we learn. So some of the learning science and fundamentals, which underpins why Maths Pathway was born and how we came into being. It brings in a comparison of the age-based versus competency-based learning. So that's one of the things to be really wary of when you're choosing what resources to use. And the Maths Pathway approach is the competency-based learning. So we'll cover that before diving in and actually looking at the program itself. So I'm sure you're very keen to see how it works and how it looks should you wish to sign up and make use of our offering. And Q&A, we'll have time at the end, but you are welcome to ask those questions as we go as well. So first up, what is learning? So I'd actually like you to give this some thought yourself initially. So perhaps if I give you just 30 seconds to think, if you were asked on the street, what is learning? How would you reply? So I'm not going to put anyone on the spot. Just wanted to put, give it some thought, have some deep thinking around what is learning. And I'll give you the answers anyway, and my answers. In its simplest form, learning is adding to long-term memory. So the more we put into long-term memory, the more knowledge we have, we've learnt something, and we can recall that and retrieve that information. So how do we do that? That's the big question. And learning science has come a long way, especially in the last decade or two. It's really leaps and bounds, and the understanding and detail of how this works is quite phenomenal. We're not going to go into the depths of the learning scientists, but just to give the broader basic overview. The two main areas with the memory and the way it works is the working memory and the long-term memory. So long-term memory is where we store everything we already know, all of our knowledge, what we've already learnt. But trying to get it there requires the use of the working memory. So when we deeply think about something, the residue of that thought is what stores in the long-term memory. And this can even happen whilst we're sleeping. So sleep is fundamentally important. But getting it to the working memory, there is so much that comes in, so much stimuli, many things we ignore. So we have to deliberately think about new content or new information. And if we can link it to what we already know, if we have some existing knowledge that we find, this is where it fits, that's how we can really make it sticky and strong in our long-term memory and retention. So the working memory itself is very limited. So it's where the thinking happens. So with a new stimuli comes in, but it can only hold a few items at a time, and it doesn't take much to become overloaded. So it has to work hard and juggle a lot. And high cognitive load is something that's mentioned a lot in education circles these days. It's like if you're trying to learn one complex thing, but you don't know all these other aspects and teach more complex, you very quickly get overloaded and can't manage any of it. It's just too much. And there is a difference between a novice and an expert. So a novice is someone new to a concept, they don't know much about it, versus an expert who has a strong understanding. They've already got information in their long-term memory that they can make sense of new information. So, but the working memory in both cases is very limited. There's no difference with how much the working memory can hold. What is different is the long-term memory. So the novice has less in it, doesn't have as much information, and it's not as well organized. It hasn't, they haven't got these schemata or schema that, develop these complex bodies of knowledge. Whereas the expert does have vastly more well-developed and organized long-term memory that they can make use of. To give a really concrete example of how this looks and how this plays out, especially in mathematics and learning mathematics, because maths is one of the most sequential topics in all of school education or young people education. You can learn a history topic in isolation, but mathematics, very difficult to learn, square numbers if you don't know place value. You have to have the building blocks along the way. So if we come across solving a two-step equation, a novice views this as like a number, a couple of mathematical symbols, and a letter. So already there's like 6 pieces of information, and that's a lot to sort of juggle around for the working memory. Versus an expert who may already recognize this as an expression. So that's a unique structure. They recognize equal sign as equivalence, that both sides have the same value, and recognize a fixed value. So this sort of reduces the load on the working memory. There's only 3 items to do that. And we call this chunking. So this is a learning science term. Instead of having 4 individual pieces of information, you can have one piece of information, because it's all connected in the long-term memory and linked together and understood. Retrieving that and putting it to use in the working memory is a lot easier and takes less load, and makes connecting new information to existing knowledge much easier. So coming back to what competency-based learning is, and this is the maths pathway approach. So one of our strengths, which is rather unique in the Australian market, is making sure that students have the prerequisite knowledge before they progress. So we want them to master what they're learning as they go. So we'll ensure that all students, before they begin or attack something like this, have mastered understanding expressions, as well as all the prerequisites that have led to that. And they would have also mastered solving one-step equations. So they understand getting solutions, solving equations before they attack this. So it's only when these are both mastered and completed do students then progress on to these types of equations, two-step equations. If we, that chunking, if we contrast this with the age-based teaching, and particularly the lockstep approach used in schools and a lot of other resources you might come across that you're looking for in homeschooling, a lot of this might be, if they're in year 8, we have to teach them this, ready or not. So they may not have the fundamental prerequisite knowledge required. So they look at this as all bits of individual information. I was a teacher of mathematics in secondary school, and I had students in this situation, but I was required to teach this. The most I could do is teach a recipe. It's like, you can't deeply understand something if you can't link it to the prerequisite knowledge, and you don't remember it that well either. So I'd teach the recipe to follow to get the right answer. Subtract 1 there and subtract 1 there, and trying to isolate X, you do the opposite of what's happening to X now. All of these things. But as soon as you teach a recipe in that nature without the deep understanding, it becomes very hard for students to apply that recipe in different contexts. So, what happens if I change the order of the equation? Like it becomes 9 equals 2y minus 3. I don't know what I'm doing. The recipe I learned doesn't apply. Do I need a new recipe? And you get this retrieval strength decay, so it's not linked. You forget much faster. So all humans forget. We've also addressed that in the maths pathway model as well, which I'll try and get to if we have time. But this feeling that I'm not a maths person, you struggle with it, you feel I just can't do these things. The Matthew effect is that's sort of understanding like that gap widens over time. So students that have struggled a little bit see themselves not a maths person versus those that do. It starts off here and then it just grows wider and wider and wider. Like once you fall off the train, it's very hard to get back on. And when you have that mismatch between the level of skill and the level of challenge, that's where you see all this anxiety and apathy of people just nervous about mathematics or switching off entirely and just not wanting to go there. So what do we do?
Pretending that every student has the same needs can go wrong, particularly in math.
So this is Justin, one of our co-founders. It just sort of highlights what I've spoken about in a little more detail. It's only a minute long, so we'll see this in it with another example.
This is because each piece of maths you unlock acts as a key for other pieces of maths. So students can learn one piece of maths, then use that to unlock the next one. But if everyone is treated the same, it's pretty easy for you to miss out as a student. If you need a bit more time before moving on or miss some time from school, you can end up with some missing keys. Then when you try and learn something new, it doesn't go well. A piece of maths that makes perfect sense to others might look like complete gibberish to you. And maths doesn't connect in a simple way, it's a complicated web. So gaps can snowball over time. The problem only gets worse, until most of the maths you're seeing doesn't make any sense to you at all. This can affect any student, no matter how advanced they are. In fact, most students have gaps in some areas, but in other areas things are rock solid and they could progress really quickly, but can be held back by a more one-size-fits-all approach. That's why your school is treating every student as the unique individuals they are, by providing true differentiation, tailoring maths learning to meet their individual needs.
So are there any questions about any of that we've touched on so far with the learning science?
Nothing's come through so far.
So this a nicer way to put this is probably unfinished learning as a new term we're starting to use. So nearly every single one of us hasn't got 100% on all of our assessments when we were learning at school, if we learnt at school. So that's some things that, we've missed along the way. And in mathematics, that snowballs in a big way. So this month, the month of January, we do have a special offer that you get your first month free if you sign up using the maths code success. I just wanted to point that out there. There's a takeaway sheet which will have these details in there. If you do sign up and go ahead, you'll get a welcome email that looks a little something like this. And in this welcome email gives you the details of how to get started. But I just want to point out also there are these diagnostic codes. So I'm about to jump in to show you what all this looks like as a student and looking at the program in more detail. But the diagnostic we have measures everything from level 1 to 10 advanced across the Australian curriculum and Victorian curriculum, New South Wales curriculum. So you can choose any one of those that you wish. Because that's a lot to measure, it is very smart and adaptive. So we can rule out some things that are harder based on a student not answering this correctly. We can say, oh, they must understand all of this if they've gotten that. But we can't assume that they don't know everything. So it is very, careful in fully checking across that huge breadth of curriculum. Because of that, we've broken it into 4 chunks. To do that sort of diagnostic in one hit would be a lot of fatigue, testing fatigue. So the very first experience that students face is doing the first diagnostic, in order to access the remaining diagnostics, you will need the codes that are provided to you in this email. So just be aware that to hang on to that email, it'll have the codes that you need. I'm now going to jump in. And when a student first signs in. There's a bit of, should I let me know, Kylie, if there's something I should?
Yeah, I guess something one of the parents has commented, Tracy, just says makes total sense, really resonates with my eldest who would have been starting high school this year. She has some fundamental gaps. She thinks she hates maths and it's hard.
Mhm.
I guess for a child, and as I spoke to you before we started, I was in the same position, my 16-year-old, and we've used an abundance of programs, tutors and everything, and we still found that he had gaps quite a fair way back. Is getting those older kids on board to trying something new. And if you've got any tips or anything that you can offer, words of advice, because for
Mhm.
some of those parents, it's going to be a really hard battle to get their kids to try again if they've had years of, I can't do maths, I'm dumb, I hate it, there's no point, all those sorts of things. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a challenge. We get ingrained thoughts and belief patterns, and to overcome those ingrained thoughts and belief patterns, we almost need to see for ourselves that something actually occurring that is contrary to those beliefs, and it has to be personal. So there will be some perseverance initially if we can get students to the point of experiencing some success for themselves, which is what, we get these stories all the time at Mass Pathway of students that have been completely switched off, then finally doing some maths at their point of need that they actually do understand. There's overcoming the hurdle of not wanting to try in the first place, but if we can push through that barrier of just giving it a go, there are lots of resources around growth mindset and that we are all capable of learning in Mass Pathway. So one of my favorite sort of professors on that is Jo Bowler. She wrote a book called Mathematical Mindsets. She has a website called U Cubed. So with some colleagues, it's not all hers, out of Stanford University. And they have a lot of resources towards, rich learning and trying and just understanding that, it's not a gene, it's not something that we're made up that we can do, but everybody can do maths. So there's a few resources like that. But getting students to the point where, if on that first assessment, or it might be the second test in Mass Pathway, that they get some things right and that they start understanding. Once you cross that, just the whole world changes. The belief patterns change, and that's when you start hitting the stride. But probably the first month is still going to be challenging because you've got to overcome the ingrained beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I know one of the things I did say to my son was it's not him. We just didn't have access to the right programs that worked for him. And now that we do, now that we know better, we do better. That good old saying. And I agree with you. Once he got over that initial hump, he doesn't argue about doing maths anymore. So still doesn't love it, but he doesn't argue about doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Finding the value in it, that's always
Yes, yes.
yeah.
And now that he's 16, looking at apprenticeships, he knows he's going to need the
Mm.
skills. So I think once they get to that stage where they can actually see, hang on, I'm going to need this when we read through the subjects of different courses at TAFE and that all helps as well. So,
Yeah, maths definitely underpins everything, and they're absolutely going to need some of what they learn. But
okay.
it is hard to guarantee that every child will need everything that is learnt in the maths curriculum. One of my go-tos or catch-alls is like, yeah, I can't guarantee you'll need to use all of this maths, but I can guarantee you'll face challenges and problems in life. And mathematics is a wonderful training ground for those critical thinking skills, problem solving skills. And just like you play a computer game and passing levels, you walk around finding different tools, you got to learn how to use them. Maths, we're learning all of these tools and knowledge and skills and learning how to wield them. And they make you far more powerful in problem solving in other areas of your life as well.
Yeah. Now, Tracy mentioned that her child has gaps back to year 3, but of course, Maths Pathway goes all the way back to year 3 anyway. So,
Does, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So we cover from level 1 onwards.
yeah, perfect.
I mean,
And
I wouldn't recommend it for a student who is in like a grade 1 equivalent age because of the independence required. More hands-on physical play is better at that age.
yeah. And Lorraine has asked, our issue is retaining the concepts. She learns but doesn't
Mm,
retain.
yeah. I could talk for another 10, 15 minutes about retention, and
Maybe
I
we can
can't.
come back to it
We
again.
don't have that much time, but I just want to mention like space practice is another part of learning science where we all forget this is a forgetting curve. The ideal time to resurface knowledge that you've is when you're at a 90% chance of retrieval. So there's a couple of different fields of research. When you do that, you start flattening this curve. So it's a hack, and you can space out the next time you get to 90% a bit further and further. We've designed an algorithm with Luke Eglinton's support. He's a researcher that is our warm-ups. So this was built into the maths pathway modules. When students go to beginner module, they do a warm-up, which is effectively doing this with everything that they've learned in the past to retain and become fluent and strong with that knowledge. So
We've got a child that used Maths Pathway at school for 3 years, but is now homeschooling.
mm.
Um, so when she left school last year, her account would have been closed. Will she be able to access her old profile, or will she have to start all over?
We can absolutely find old profiles and retrieve them. Whether, there's, depending on how long ago it was, there might be benefit in just starting again and redoing diagnostics again, because if she hasn't been doing warm-ups regularly, which I just explained, that, keeps that knowledge of past content fresh and easily retrieved, it may actually be better off just starting afresh with new diagnostics and then that way some of the things that may have been forgotten will be picked up again. And
Okay. So should Annie just reach out to support Maths Pathway? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, once you sign up, we've got a dedicated support channel for homeschool as well. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Uh, so just quickly now that we're in in the program as a student or as a young person, a couple of things I want to point out: the accessibility features. So there are a few different fonts that can be chosen, and space between letters can be adjusted. Space between words can be adjusted just to help students with those additional needs. And here's where you enable text to speech too. So if you want everything that you're reading also spoken to you, you can turn those things on there. There are a couple of themes and avatars and things like that, but they're not building a huge outfit and things like that. It's just a quick student preferences. In all of our themes, though, it hasn't been mentioned there, we have thought carefully about the three most common colour vision deficiencies. I never remember their names, but just that's also been thought in, built into the design as well. But when students first start, there is a diagnostic. This is to find out exactly what they already know and what they don't yet know. And this is Gromo, our growth monster, to try and help sort of teach and encourage along the way and explain why we're doing what we're doing. So it is important during diagnostics that they don't get help, that they don't use a calculator, they don't use Google or AI. If you are going to supervise any particular activity to avoid that, I'd probably make it the diagnostic, because if they get help here, they'll get work that's too hard for them, that they're not ready for. And that's going to compound the issues that you've already seen with, the disengagement and hating mathematics. So we don't want that. We want the maths to be just right for them. The diagnostics do have inbuilt redundancies, and what I mean by that is if they make a simple mistake, a little simple error, they'll get a question very similar to that on the next go to show to try again effectively on that content. So they have to get something wrong twice in a row for the system to say, "Oh, yep, you don't know that yet." So there's
And can I just ask, just to confirm, there's never grade levels mentioned anywhere, so the kids really have no idea sort of what grade a particular question could be from, and
yeah, exactly. So I'm going to show you what it looks like post-diagnostics next. I just wanted to skip that example. They do start a whole series of questions like this, short answer as well. But let's move on now from diagnostics, and I'll log in as someone else. So this is a student who has finished their diagnostics, and this is what they now see. They've had, diagnostic completed there. The way it's structured is we could, have a timeline or a cycle where they're expected to do 6 learning activities, 6 modules, we call them, before a test roughly every 2 weeks. Now, these tests will be scheduled every 2 weeks for you. When you take holidays is up to you, and you can miss a test, that's totally fine. It'll just be all there waiting for you when they come back. The tests expire after a week, so if you miss a test, it's no biggie. Any work that they did before that test that they didn't do will just go on to the next test. So it's all covered. There's no extra things you need to do or pause or anything like that. Just it's all taken care of. Starting a new activity. Actually, before we go back, you do have the option to see data here in terms of a curriculum grid. So whilst they're learning, we're not talking about levels and things like that, but this does show where their strengths and unfinished learning is from across the entire curriculum. And they might have some strengths at higher levels as well. So it's the data is there for you and your child to see, or young person. But when they're learning through activities, it's really structured like rungs of a ladder to climb. We've grouped modules into key concepts, so things like fraction representations. When they complete what we call a gem, they get to assemble it and say, that's now mastered. So just it's like celebrating the wins along the way. You do a little bit of learning, and we're capturing all of this as we go along. It'll automatically open to the most sensible thing for them to learn next. They can finish off this key concept by choosing a module there. This maths does go all the way up to, the 10 advanced that I was mentioning there. Some of it's not yet available because this student hasn't finished all of their diagnostics yet. And similarly, the grade modules are things we know that they don't know yet. So they've been diagnosed, but they haven't yet done the prerequisites required in order to access that. If you were to click on a grade module, and it'll show you the module path in order to get to that module. It's like, before you can do advanced multiple, you need to do all of these things, which are the prerequisite knowledge, the building blocks, the fundamentals to get there. And it's these blue ones that are available to them now. So any gem shown in blue is available for students to start. Anything in gold is already mastered. I'll go ahead and click start. There is one other feature here we can say first available. So if you want the highlighted modules that are like the lowest level on that curriculum grid when we're looking at that data as the first available. So there's different options on the way you can do it, or I'd just sort of focus on completing gem after gem after gem. It's a really good approach. And this just lays out the structure of those modules. So I mentioned the warm-ups. That's our space practice engine. So it's all the content that they've already mastered in the past, but resurfaced at that 90% chance of retrieval to keep it fresh and hack the long-term memory so that you get long-term retention. And then the main module is in the middle here, but we do have a preview with entrance tickets. So an entrance ticket just shows these are the type of questions that you'll be able to do when you finish learning. So it's like a preview. And the research shows that preview is really effective and leads to better outcomes afterwards. It also serves as another redundancy to those diagnostics. Like if they were having a bad day on a diagnostic test and, skipped over things that they actually knew, they can show it during this entrance ticket. And if they demonstrate, it's like, oh, you actually understand that. We're not going to make them do the 30-minute module on stuff they already know. They can skip over it, go on to the next more challenging thing. And we'll just confirm that they've mastered that under the test conditions as well in the test. Serves two purposes, but the preview is the main one. Then they do the module. It's about 30 minutes worth of work and focus, very well scaffolded, zone of proximal development. Sorry, that's an ed tech sort of, an ed term. We're just making sure we take it from the knowledge they already know. So the system knows what they already know, and we think about what's in the long-term memory, the organization and the schema. So we begin there with the module and just slowly piece it from there, getting more and more complex. And so that they're learning by doing. They're learning by nutting it out as they go and forming those connections as they go. It's a combination of bookwork and answering online. As of this year, we've just built adaptive modules. So from this year, they'll be able to answer some questions online that are simple as checkpoints along the way to ensure that they're engaging with the material. But every single module will have some elements that need pen and paper bookwork as well, because that's a really powerful form of learning. And as they get into the more and more advanced areas of mathematics, the more working and setting out that's required. So the bookwork starts light at the lower levels and ramps up as they get to the higher levels.
And when you say bookwork, that's a book that you and your student provide. It's not something that comes with the program.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So the program is just all, delivered by the software.
Yes.
But we want some answers written with pen and paper into an exercise book.
Yeah. And can I ask, you've got the 4 components sitting in front of us. What's the rough guide as to how long that would actually take to complete? I know that's going to be different for each child, but
yeah, about 35 minutes is the average. So we say 30 minutes for the question time, but these pretty much take 2 minutes and 2 minutes and a minute, if that.
Yeah. And if they drop out halfway through this 4 block,
yep, they pick up where they left off. Yeah.
Yep,
So
perfect.
you can lose internet connection and. Yeah.
Excellent. Can the child continue the program beyond year 9 where they have not yet reached that grade level in the system?
So they can absolutely continue till the end of our content. So we run out of content for the 10 advanced level. So typically when anyone who finishes 10 advanced is on track to do specialist maths or extension 1 and 2 in New South Wales and things like that. A year 9 level is, like, in terms of the curriculum, level 9, it's roughly enough to access math methods or advanced maths in New South Wales. But I'm not sure if I'm answering the question correctly in terms of continuing.
Does that clarify it for you, Annie? I'm not 100% sure what you're asking either. Yeah, okay, that's good. Okay, thank you.
That's all right. So there's roughly 480 modules in our system to cover that. And then the exit ticket is similar to the entrance ticket, questions that they're going to be assessed on. These are exactly like the questions that'll be on the test. And, they demonstrate that they've understood it then and there, because if they can't answer the questions then and there after completing the module, it'll serve up some bonus questions related to that from the module, so until they do master it, because we want them learning really, really solidly as they go and not waiting for a lot longer to find out that they didn't quite grasp it yet. So that's the fundamentals. You drop out at any time, you pick up where you left off. These tests, they're really more like a checkpoint. So rather than thinking, tests in schools were often a really big deal, and they could be, anxiety inducing, because this is your one chance to demonstrate understanding on something, and it's going to go on your report card. And, if you don't do well, too bad, there's nothing you can do about it. Here in Maths Pathway, we just want students learning all year, and they're progressing along their sequence, along their own continuum from where they understand. But every 2 weeks, we just want to dip in and check how they're going. Like, are they learning well? Are they really mastering everything that they're studying? Because if they're not, that's an opportunity to sort of step in and say, oh, what went wrong here? And let's revisit. And if they're having a second go on a module, the system actually serves up the questions that they got wrong on the test to get them to think more deeply about it and reflect on that, to use it as a learning experience. And anything that they get wrong on that test, they just get an opportunity to do again. And they won't move on to more harder maths until they've shown mastery over that particular area of maths. So it's really cleverly designed to build in that way.
Yep, perfect.
Any other questions on
Not at
that?
the moment, no.
No, great. So those 2 weeks checkpoints, not a major deal. It's you know, supporting students, but that's like the nuts and bolts of everything, of the maths pathway side of thing. We could look at a little bit more of the how warm-ups work and things like that. Typically if you get it right, you move through. There's generally 6 question items. 4 will be just like the modules, and 2 will be some non-routine problem solving, so more worded questions. So it just it keeps memory fresh, and you get faster and faster. How many students wear glasses?
I would also appreciate if you wouldn't mind going through as you get through the warm up into the actual lesson, because what threw us off initially, and that may have been us not reading enough information when we first started, was we were looking for the workbook.
Yes.
And then also my son was sort of a bit confused with why there's nowhere I can answer. I've got to write this down. So if you could just explain, while showing us how that
Yeah.
actually looks so the parent understands, because I know that sort of threw us in the beginning. Tracy has asked, if the student works through the modules quickly, does the test open up then before the 2 weeks?
No, the test is fixed on that day, but what they can have is bonus modules. So they can do more work. So once they finish the 6, they're never prevented from doing more work. But we just find that 2-weekly cadence, 2-weekly cycle just becomes, a part of the routine, and makes just easier for tracking.
Yep.
Things like that. If you get a question wrong on any one of these, there's gives you another try. It's like, have another go, and that's fine. So we don't want to punish students for getting it wrong. They're all learning opportunities. What was it? 3 kilometers. That one. I'll submit an answer. Okay, and it's all designed so that students can't rush through it. So it makes it hard to demo quickly, but we want students thinking
Okay. I
it's
actually
very
had
good
another
for learning.
question. I had a family mention to me that their child had been using Maths Pathway for quite a while, and they had, for whatever reason, had been able to skip over an entire section and continue and just never go to that section. Is that, I'm assuming, because I haven't seen that. I haven't seen a possibility for my son, Christian. It's always pushing him back. You haven't done this, you haven't done this kind of thing. May have that been an older version or...
Look, it depends on which area of the curriculum. I do have a slide here that kind of gives a little example. This is just a very small taste. It's quite small there of that sequencing and how it goes. So if like a student would probably struggle to avoid this kind of module, fraction coefficients, because there's like 4 different roads leading into it. They wouldn't be able to begin this until they'd shown mastery here and mastery wherever those ones lead to. So this is the sequencing, and part of our intellectual property that we don't give you the whole thing all at once, but that's you can, we can show sort of snippets of it here and there.
Yep.
But you can see it's a very complicated web. It's not linear, it's all crosses over and goes there. However, in some parts of the curriculum, there might be a module that's off over here that doesn't lead to anything else. It's kind of like a cul-de-sac. It's, has no further post-requisites. It's just the end of the line,
Right.
effectively. So you would, it'd be possible to avoid that particular module and just continue on these others. But there are some modules that are more quintessential than others that, and if you're like waiting for new things to open up, you might be forced to, come and do these ones again and again to get to the new openings.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
That's all right. So I'll try and finish that. Feel free to keep thinking on other questions.
Yes, I uploaded, for any of you who've joined late, I'll re-put it again. Liam's put together just a little PDF which links off to some bits and pieces that you might find helpful. I'm just putting that up again now. So please grab that from the chat.
As you progress through that, we can see warm-ups completed. I'm up to the entrance ticket now, lets you know how you're going. Things are explained all the way through as they're progressing. So, you know, we don't answer these questions just yet, just have a look. It's like, oh, would I be able to answer these? Do I know them? And if I think I do, or they're making sense to me, you know, I'd probably answer them correctly. That's when you'll be given a chance to show that you understand it. So you'll have to answer them then and there. But you won't have to do the module if you already know that. But if you don't know it yet, that's when you enter into the module. We've had the preview, now it's time to learn. And this is when things like bookwork are explained as you go. So use your workbook to answer all questions. Ideally, you know, with good ways to set it out. We don't want mistakes rubbed out. You actually learn from mistakes and things like that. And, you know, using color pens, correct each question as you go, fix all mistakes as you go. So it's built in to the software, the sort of the training and the explanations, but you will need your own exercise books and pens. Calculators are provided when needed on the screen, so you don't need a calculator. A ruler can help to keep things neat, but it's not essential. So get Romo popping up with different things at different times. But essentially working through a module, it's just one question at a time. That cognitive load I talked about, you don't want to put too much information on the screen at once. You want to keep it pared back. So, you know, which is smaller and higher, check my answer. So you will have written the answer in your book, ideally before checking. But if you get stuck at anywhere along the way and you weren't too sure and you needed some help, every single question has the help next to it, whether I'm on this side or that side. And it lays out the first step for getting help is to actually check the answer, because that's quite a valid method, is look at the answer and maybe work backwards. It's like, oh, okay, I've got that now, I can move on. But I'm unsure again, where can I get help? All of these modules come with an inbuilt video. So once I've checked the answer, I go to step 2 and I can watch the
Hi there,
video.
I'm Sam, and this video is on the module Ordering and Comparing Whole Numbers. Here's two numbers. Let's compare them and
We
write a
won't
sentence.
watch this whole thing now, but that's like the teacher teaching from the board. So it's all built into every single module as they go. So this is not an adaptive module. This is one where every question is just presented one at a time and they keep progressing through. If they're too fast, it'll say, hang on, you know, you haven't really worked on that. You know, it's like, it's sort of the system sort of thinks, you know, you need a certain amount of time to actually respond and do each question.
Yeah, so this is the section where the child is expected to be writing in their workbook, answering questions in their own. And there is a video which we found, which we should have looked for earlier, which explains to you how to set up the workbook and why you're using it that way. And that, yeah, we missed that in the beginning. So
I see. Yeah, I'm not sure. Is that in the welcome email? It might be. There's a
it
couple of
may
things in
have.
the in that welcome email. It's probably too much information, which is why nothing gets read. So it's got it's got some links to, you know, how to complete the diagnostic and completing a module.
Yeah.
And a few other useful links. We may end up breaking it into separate emails if it's not all, if some of it's getting missed.
It was probably us. So read the welcome email properly and you won't.
And we do have, so there will be some adaptive modules that you may face which have more questions answered online as well. Those adaptive modules actually offer more scaffolding if a student gets something wrong when they answer online. It's like, oh, let's pause here, we'll do a few more like this, or go back a bit, and then speed students on if they say, oh, you got that, you got that, you got that. We don't need to spend too long there. Let's move you on to more harder things. So we're working on doing that with more and more modules, but about half of the you know, the more common modules will be done.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Any day now, probably in the next few weeks.
Yep. Excellent.
Any other questions?
Yes. Anyone got anything else you want to see or know?
Just to explain this reflection component to after the test. So like the standard practice to do 6 modules before the test, you can see when that's coming. After they complete the test, they sit a reflection. So the reflection goes through and kind of collects all the modules that they got correct to contribute to their growth rate, we call it. So once you complete a test, you'll get these metrics filled out. If they master 3 of these modules, and to master, there might be, 3 or 4 questions related to that particular module. They have to get all of those questions correct for that module to be considered mastered. If they master 3 modules, that's 100% growth, which is equivalent to 1 year's worth of maths per year in the way it's described by the curriculums in Australia. So it is possible if they master all 6 to be grown at 200% and doing 2 years worth of maths in 1 year, which is something, the average is about 1.5 years that we see students growing at a much faster rate than they do at school and can get to their correct level of challenge. As they're going through this, any mistakes that they made on the test, they'll get an opportunity to have another go at them. So again, we don't want to punish students for making mistakes. We want to use them as learning opportunities. So they can self-correct at that stage. If they do get it correct, then that will count as mastery if they have done, gotten all the questions correct.
Yep.
In relation to a module.
I have a question. Are you still moving forward this year with the tutor option?
Yeah, I believe that is still available
Can you
this year.
explain how that works, just in case anyone may be interested in that?
Yeah, so it's an opportunity, I think, to Zoom or like send questions through to a tutor whenever a student gets stuck. So if for example, we've seen the inbuilt help and the inbuilt supports that are online. So a non-tutor assisted, you just have those resources at your disposal. But if you want to talk to a human, maths trained human that can help with any questions, then the tutor assisted option is available as an
And
add-on.
how does that practically work? Is it still an online chat function or?
Yeah, so it's still done remotely. I think you'll have their like their email address to interact with or send through and set up like an online session, so like a half an hour Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
Um,
Tracy asked, is that the type of, going back to the stats that you just were talking about, is that the
Yeah.
type of data or stats parents would report on to demonstrate progress in the end of year homeschool report? Actually, that's probably
Absolutely.
something good if you've got that we could look at. What can parents access to demonstrate progress?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the main things is this curriculum grid. This student doesn't have as much detail there. Let me because they have it. But as they progress in this current year's learning, it'll present in solid gold. So you'll see, this is kind of the attainment across the entire curriculum of what they know. So that's one thing. Also, there is a parent portal up here in the top left, which just has a few more bits of information and facts to FAQs to help with. You can enter your email address there. That just gives you a notification every time a test has been completed, so you can go and check the results, and you get these growth rates on every test to go through, and what actual maths that they've learned, what all the modules are in a long list, as well as the mastery points broken into different strands of the curriculum, so you can see the progress across different elements. So you have a wealth of data at your fingertips for being able to report.
Perfect. And we've just got the question, what does Maths Pathway recommend for students to progress onto after grade 10, once they finish the program?
Yeah, so that's typically the all states have primarily it's methods in general maths in year 11 and 12, like VCE or other senior subjects in different states. They're already differentiated for different needs. So it depends on, I guess, aspirations after school, which of those subjects students would choose to work in. And it also depends on their levels of attainment and what they're ready and capable of. So as a rough guide, it's not exact, but a student who's mastered everything up to level 8 is on track for general maths, typically. Mastered up to level 9, on track for methods, and mastered up to level 10, on track for specialist.
Yeah.
It's very rough. There might be some areas you want a bit more algebra or you want a bit more statistics and things like that than just the flat level.
Becky, I'm not sure how long you've been homeschooling, if you're new, but you'll tend to find that most homeschooled kids at that stage are pretty much on track to start some kind of university through open universities or whatever anyway. So that tends to be where they go, which is why I think Maths Pathway sits really well with homeschool world, because of that reason. There's not many homeschoolers that do grade 11 and 12 standard maths. They're off doing other pathways anyway. So, yeah. All right.
17 years, very good.
Yes.
And yeah, been a pleasure to to showcase all of this with you.
Yeah, Tracy said it looks great. Thanks for the demo. Looking forward to my daughter trying it out. Yeah, cool. How long does a child have to do the year's work?
As long as they need. So like that's our model. They just grow from wherever they happen to be.
It's okay. I realized
Yes.
I read the sentence incorrectly with my as well. How long does the child have to complete the year's work? Yes.
Yeah. But typically students do more than a year's worth of work in 1 year, learning in a personalized competency-based approach. Typically, a student in a lockstep age-based approach will learn half to 60% of a year's worth of math. So students can learn so much better when it's just right for them. I don't know why we haven't done it for years.
Yeah, exactly. Tracy asked, is there a family prize? I know there is. I'm just not 100% sure on how many kids. Catherine, you might be able to respond with that. But there is a family prize. I'm just not sure of how that works with how many children you have. Do you know the answer to that, Liam, or?
I don't off the top of my head, sorry, but yeah, I do know it is discounted, so the more.
Yes.
I can answer that quickly. It's so you can pay for up to 2 kids, and then for any other kid you add on, you don't pay for them. So you'll only ever pay for 2 children.
Perfect. I need to remember that. Thanks, Catherine. And how much is the final cost for one child for the program per year?
About 299, is it? Let me double check because I'll just go to the website.
That's what I had in my head, but I didn't want to get that wrong.
Yeah, so the link to this website's in the takeaway handout on the PDF as well.
I believe so. If they can't complete that year in work in a year, it just carries over because there's not really years. That's correct, isn't it?
That is correct. Yeah. So
they just keep going.
Yeah. And so we don't let students work ahead beyond what they're ready for. So they have to demonstrate they understand the prerequisites first. And similarly, we don't have them repeating and working behind what they're ready for. So if you took 6 months off and you went, traveling and did other things, you could come back to it and pick up where you left off. There's no...
Which will be us over Christmas. My son will have had, by the time we start back, he will have had nearly 8 weeks off, and he'll just jump back in and it'll remember where he was. And yeah. Okay, yes, I was right. $2.99. I should have trusted myself. Yes. Okay, so pay for 2 children, and then if you have a 3rd child, they basically use the program for free. Right, perfect. All right. Last call for questions. Can you change to tutoring level if already paid for standard? Oh yeah, can you upgrade?
Yeah, I'm sure you can. Just get in touch with I think it's Maths Pathway. No, so it's support@mathspathway.me. Let me...
When you join, you'll get that email that lets you know about support, and honestly, they are so good. If any questions, they have been excellent, and yeah, they've been great. So you would just ask for that. So far, like you, we haven't needed the tutor, but it's there, I guess, if we feel we need to. So,
Mm.
yeah, perfect. Okay. Well, look at that. We're pretty much right on time. That worked in well.
It has.
Excellent. Well,
So
thank you
sure.
so much again.
Mm.
It's been really good. Even though we've been using it for a while, it was still helpful for me to see it laid out like that from you. So I hope that has helped you all. Just a reminder, month free, and that will end, I assume, on the 31st of January. Catherine, give me a thumbs up in the comments if I'm right, but I assume that that will end on the 31st of Jan. Yeah, thank you. So just make sure you use that code Math Success to get the extra month free. And yeah, thank you again. Appreciate it. And I'll see you next time, I guess, Liam, at one of these. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, look forward to it, Kylie. And all
excellent.
the best, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.